Okay, this is good. I prepared Mr. Kielbasa for the fact that it was Hauntings weekend. He did say that he's going to send a bill to Brown College and University because his son was so traumatized last year that he still hasn't gotten over it. And
therapists are expensive.
And therapists are very expensive, yes. So just keep that in mind. If there's one less banquet in the spring, you'll know why. So I am going to just turn this right over to Mr. Kielbasa because you know we do have an awful lot on our plates here. We want him to be able to share with you all the information he has about the Virginia Film Festival. I cannot tell you how fortunate we are that he is willing to take time, and a very busy time, to come in and have you be the first to know some things about the film festival, to hear his picks and tips about the film festival, to walk you through some of the events that are taking place here November 5, 6, 7, and 8. It's an exciting thing. Many of you are first years who are here. I know there are some others also, but this is your first opportunity to experience one of the premier film festivals in America. May I say that? And
you may say that. That's fine. I'm okay with it.
And it's a wonderful opportunity to interact with filmmakers and producers, actors and actresses. We do have an entry, yes, in the Adrenaline Film Project. You are going to be in the Adrenaline Film Project? Did your application get accepted?
I don't know. Caitlin was on a team.
Okay, well, we'll find out where we are with that, but we may even have a team. Brown College may even have a team. Also, it's most important that you hear from Mr. Kielbasa about the arts in general at UVA. So as I said in my email to you tonight, it's music, it's dance, it is drama, it is theater, it is special events and programs. And Jody has done a super job. I mean, Kevin Spacey, do you get any better than that? He was here last year, yes? And absolutely terrific, and I don't know who you have on your speakers program this year.
I don't either.
So you'll be still
but I
among the
just
first
sent a letter
to know.
out to Ian McKellen.
Oh, wonderful. Very nice.
But I don't have him yet.
Well, come on up here and follow up on that. So let's give him a round of applause for being here tonight.
Well, Steve, could I prevail upon you to just run the video really quickly? We've got about a 3-minute video which will sort of sum up last year's Virginia Film Festival for you, and then I'll come on up. Thank you.
People have the Virginia Film Festival blocked off on their calendar a year in advance. That is something that I don't know any other arts organization does in Charlottesville.
It's a highly anticipated event that happens every year in Charlottesville. And there are people who would miss it. They would miss the opening night gala. They would miss the closing night wrap party. You know, there's so many traditions wrapped around the festival that are enduring.
There's that element of surprise year after year out of all the films that are out there to showcase.
So that's Barry Levinson.
Workshops to offer.
The Natural,
people to
Diner,
whether it's a director,
Good Morning
or
Vietnam.
a producer. A recent star, an older star, classic person.
Jenna Elfman, Patrick Wilson, Ashley Judd.
I think what makes the festival unique and distinguishes us from the other film festivals in the country are our close alignment with the University of Virginia. It's extraordinary that we can count on some of the top academic experts in the world to come in and really allow for a fascinating mix of talent, creativity, and phenomenal discussion wrapped around these films. We screen films that deal with politics or the various cultures, with sexuality, religion, you name it, we can cover it, and we do during the film festival. And as a result, we're able to engage more carefully with our community.
It's all about the conversations that we have here. It's this amazingly fueled audience participation that over the last quarter century, the Virginia Film Festival has become really known for.
With our Family Day activities that we do, as well as some of the other programs we have in high schools and some of the schools around town, it really is an important part of folks that live in Charlottesville, and it's something that they can look forward to during the year and be active in, whether it be young filmmakers or the Family Day. It really is something where you can connect at so many different levels.
This past year, we put on the world premiere of the film Big Stone Gap. Getting to witness firsthand the press conference upstairs at the Paramount Theater and hearing these actors and filmmakers talk about their experience on stage at the Paramount and in front of 1,000 people. That was absolutely amazing. Something that's very special and unique about the Virginia Film Festival is the scope of people that we bring in. We bring in so many fascinating individuals to participate. Civil rights activists like Julian Bond, who came this past year. And then we even have people starting just beginning their careers, new filmmakers. I would describe the Virginia Film Festival as Charlottesville's premier top-of-the-line cultural event and 4 days of fun, cinematic community magic.
So the last young woman that you heard speaking, Lauren Luco, was an intern for the Virginia Film Festival for 2 years. We select 12 interns that work for the festival each year. And then we hired her after she graduated, and she worked for us on a contract for about 5 months. Very quickly, at the end of last year, she moved out to Los Angeles, and she just got a job with Pixar in San Francisco. So we've been fortunate that a lot of our interns have gone on to be placed. We actually, a former intern, and this goes back many years before I got here, actually has a film in the festival this year. She produced the film.
All right, grassroots.
that premiered. That premiered at. Okay, thanks, Steve. Thanks for rescuing me there. So that film that she produced premiered at the Sundance Film Festival this past year, and we're screening it at this year's Virginia Film Festival. So that's just one of the things, one of the benefits that we offer to students. If you we're in the community right now and we're paying to go to this film festival, it might cost you hundreds of dollars. If you travel to a film festival, as I do, looking for films during the course of the year, it might cost you thousands of dollars. It's free for you. So you should take advantage of it. It's remarkable who you will see, the people who will come in. 2 years ago, the opening night film was Nebraska, and Will Forte from Saturday Night Live was in with that. We screened that film. He shut down our gala party that evening around 1:30 in the morning, talking to the interns in a circle, promptly went out on the corner and hung out with a lot of students. The next day took a run through Charlottesville, and later that evening we screened MacGruber as a fun thing to do for the students in Newcomb. And we had Yorma Taccone. You know the Saturday Night Live shorts. Yorma did a lot of those Saturday Night Live shorts over the years, and he was on hand with Will Forte to talk about the making of MacGruber. They spent an hour on the stage afterwards talking to students, and then went out in the lobby and continued for about another 30, 40 minutes, and then went back out on the corner. Incredible, accessible guest. So many of the Hollywood talent that we bring in, and a lot of social change agents, are really willing to give of themselves in Q&As, and it's a really wonderful opportunity. Last year, a legendary civil rights activist and former UVA professor, Julian Bond, was featured in 3 different films during the festival, and sadly he passed away over the summer. This year we're screening a film called Rosenwald, which looks at the Jewish philanthropist Julius Rosenwald, who started the Rosenwald schools for African Americans during the 20s and 30s. And Julian was a graduate of one of those schools. And so we're screening this film as a tribute to Julian, and his widow is coming in. The filmmaker Aviva Kempner will be on hand, but we are also bringing in UVA professor and poet laureate Rita Dove as well to participate in that. So it's remarkable the people that come in. You saw Katie Couric last year, a UVA alum, who had her documentary film Fed Up about the incredible rate of obesity in our country that's fed by the sugar industry. She's very passionate about this subject, and so she was on hand to moderate a conversation about that with the doctor who's actually featured in the film. So it's not just Hollywood actors and directors that we bring in, although we do that. And when you look at last year's lineup, we had the legendary stage and Hollywood actor Frank Langella in. We had Hal Holbrook Holbrook in. We had Barry Levinson in, as I mentioned earlier, as director of The Natural and Diner and Avalon and Good Morning Vietnam, and so many great films over the years. Katie Couric. We had 2 Pulitzer Prize winners present at the Virginia Film Festival. And again, this is all accessible to you. The lineup has been announced. We have over 125 films in 4 short days. And if you go online, you can book your tickets, and all you have to do is pick them up. And that's what Arts Dollars does for you. How many of you are familiar with that, Arts Dollars? Okay, this is not good. All right, so you all pay student fees. And your student fees go to fund the arts at the University of Virginia, and our gift in return is access to the arts, meaning that instead of having to take out of your pocket to go see a concert or a play at Drama or the film festival or so many other arts events at the University of Virginia, you have access to them, and you should take advantage of them. I will share that way back in one of those sort of archaeological eras when I went to college many years ago. My exposure to the arts in a really meaningful way happened when I first went to college. I came from a relatively poor family, modest means, and I didn't grow up surrounded by the arts. And I went to college. I was fortunate to get in on a scholarship, and I really soaked up all the arts that I could. I went to every musical concert I could. I went to drama. I went to lectures. I did whatever I could because it was a great opportunity to get this. And oh, guess what? When you leave the friendly confines of the University of Virginia, it will cost money, lots of money, to do this. And as a result, as you go out into the workforce and carry on with your lives, you're going to want to go to some of these things, and it's going to be actually a lot more difficult than it is to do here. And I completely understand how difficult and busy your lives are on a day-to-day basis. You've got your studies to do, you've got a social life, there's athletics, there's so many distractions here at the University of Virginia. But look into and take advantage of the arts now while it's really easy to tumble out of your dorm room or your apartment and just walk like maybe a quarter of a mile. All in a relatively contained area on the Betsy and John Castine Arts Grounds, just on the other side of Carr's Hill. So it's there and it's accessible, and they do amazing things. And some of the people, like Steve mentioned, that we bring in are extraordinary. So for instance, last year, we packed John Paul Jones Arena and had Kevin Spacey in. Talking from a stage, looking up at over 8,000 students and faculty and community members with a free event where he spoke for nearly an hour about the importance and the impact of the arts in our world and the personal effect that the arts had on his career and his life. And it was really entertaining. Obviously, he spent a lot of time talking about House of Cards, but he did his research about the University of Virginia, and he tied it into a personal way to our traditions and our values here at the university while focusing on the arts. And it was a lot of fun, and I had the good fortune of then moderating a Q&A for about 25 minutes after that from the stage. So it was a really powerful evening. The year before, for the same President's Speaker Series for the Arts, we brought in Tina Fey to inaugurate the series. And in the amphitheater, we had over 6,500 students and faculty and community members on hand, in somewhat chilly weather, I might add, to hear her talk about her experiences when she was a student going through drama at the University of Virginia, and her career and the impact that the arts has had on her life. And in particular, she talked about a number of mentors that had really inspired her. And it was really interesting to hear who they were. One of them was Chris Rock, who was one of her mentors, somebody that she really has really inspired her. And as she mentioned that, she said, and if you look under your seat out there in the amphitheater, you might discover this album signed by Chris Rock. And then you hear this raucous cheer from the seats, and a student had found under their seat a signed copy from Chris Rock. And she did the same for the renowned playwright Carol Churchill, who's a British playwright, and also for the renowned playwright and musical director Stephen Sondheim, as well as 3 artists that had profound impact on her life. So these are all things that are happening on a daily basis that you can take advantage of in the arts, and I definitely recommend that you do so. If you're not familiar with this year's Virginia Film Festival, it opens on Thursday, November 5th, and we open with the film Thank You.
Do you want this?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you. This is actually one of our new venues that we're going to be screening with on the downtown mall. If you're asking, where does the Virginia Film Festival happen? We screen at the Violet Crown, which is a new luxury theater that will actually open next Friday on the downtown mall. State-of-the-art, stadium seating, captain's chairs, really, really cool. We screen at the Paramount Theater on the downtown mall, at the Vinegar Hill, which is the old art house theater on the downtown mall, in the Southern Music Hall on the downtown mall, and then on the grounds of the University of Virginia, we screen in Newcomb Theater and the Culberth Theater, which is on the Betsy and John Castine Arts Grounds if you've not made your way over there. And we also screen at Piedmont Community College. So a lot of different venues, and we're packed, and we go from like 10 o'clock in the morning until midnight or beyond. And it's amazing. We have, as I mentioned, over 125 films in the festival. I believe 115 or 116 feature-length films. The rest are short films that we're presenting in short film packages. And then we're actually even creating films during the Virginia Film Festival. Steve mentioned the Adrenaline Film Project earlier. That is a 72-hour filmmaking competition in which teams write, create, edit, produce, direct, and act in short films that are made during the 72 hours leading up to the Virginia Film Festival, and then presented on Saturday night in the Culberth Auditorium. Prizes are awarded. We have teams that are student teams. We have professional teams that are professional and that they have made professional films before come in. We have high school teams, and then we have teams that come in from colleges and universities around the country as well. So it's a really cool process. So if you see filmmaking going on the grounds of the university or out in the community during the festival, it's probably that. So our opening night film is I Saw the Light, which stars Tom Hiddleston. You may know him as Loki in the Marvel and Avenger films. He's a British actor, a phenomenal actor, but he's playing Hank Williams, the country western singer in this. And he sings his own songs. It's a sort of remarkable acting tour de force. It also stars Elizabeth Olsen. We have the director, Mark Abraham, on hand, who's a UVA alumnus. Along with the two-time Tony Award-winning actress and Emmy Award-winning actress Cherry Jones, and a new rising star, Maddie Hassan, will be on tap for that evening and there in person, followed by our opening night gala at the Jefferson Theater. Another film that we're screening is called Most Likely to Succeed, and that actually focuses on the school system, and we're screening that as a high school screening during the festival, and we anticipate over 1,000 high school kids, and then reprising it in the evening, and Bob Pianta of the Curry School will be moderating a panel of educators and school board members as well to discuss this, and it takes a look at project-oriented teaching over the SOLs that have become so prevalent in the testing in our nation. Friday night, we're screening Mercy Street, and this is our look at television. I'll tell you an interesting story. How many of you were fans of Breaking Bad? Okay, good. So the creator of Breaking Bad, Vince Gilligan, was for all intents and purposes discovered at the Virginia Film Festival about 20 some odd years ago. There was a Virginia Film Office screenwriting competition, and it was judged by Mark Johnson, who's the chair of our board and a major Hollywood producer who produced Good Morning Vietnam, The Natural Diner, The Chronicles of Narnia, The Notebook, all these incredible films, and he was the judge. And one of the plays was written by, the screenplays was written by Vince Gilligan. It was Home Fries, and Mark loved it, gave the award to Vince Gilligan, and then promptly optioned the screenplay and made it with Vince. And it was Home Fries, starring Drew Barrymore. They went on to create, well, Vince went on to create Breaking Bad and now Better Call Saul. And Marcus served as the executive producer and won an Emmy Award for those. So it's really interesting how the festival has launched some careers as well over time. So this is a continuation of our relationship with television series. This is a new PBS series that chronicles the daily events in a Civil War hospital in Alexandria, Virginia. It stars Cherry Jones and Hannah James and Tara Summers, and they'll be on hand along with the producer. And it's interesting because UVA actually served as a Civil War hospital during the Civil War. So we thought it was really kind of interesting to screen this. The second evening, we're bringing in Meg Ryan, who I'm sure you know her work before. Meg's not coming in this case, as an actress, although she has a small role in the film. She's coming in as a first-time director, and the film Ithaca focuses on a William Saroyan novel about a young boy during World War II in a small rural town who delivers telegrams. And as you can imagine, unfortunately, a lot of those telegrams are about someone's son being killed in World War II. It's a beautiful, compelling story, and Meg directed this. It's her first time. Tom Hanks also is in the film, and this young boy, Alex Newstetter's a newcomer, plays the young man. And Meg will be on hand, of course. We have a big family day that's centered on the Betsy and John Castine Arts Grounds, and that's how we reach out to the community, and we engage children of all ages that come on. We have a Young Filmmakers Academy program, and we have 600 elementary school kids that make their own short films that we screen on that day. And then we do a series of interactive workshops with the arts programs and departments at the University of Virginia, in which faculty and students teach these workshops that kids sign up for. And that happens all at UVA on the Betsy and John Castine Arts Grounds on Saturday. We're screening the 20th anniversary of Babe and Pixar shorts in the morning. And this is all free for the community and free for students if they should want to see Babe. One of our special guests this year is the renowned film critic and film historian Leonard Maltin, who has been on Entertainment Tonight for like 25 years and published so many books about yay thick on film criticism and film history as well. And he is going to be presenting Maggie Greenwald, who's a special guest who directed the film Songcatcher about Appalachian music that came out in 2000, and the renowned animator Bill Plimpton with his film Cheatin'. If you're not familiar with Plimpton, he is a master animator, and he is the person who basically comes in for Disney and Pixar and teaches their young animators what it's all about. He's definitely a legend and a very talented guy. He'll be offering a master class on Sunday as well, which will be open to students that are interested. One of the other things that Maltin is doing is he's presenting our partnership with the Library of Congress, which celebrates the National Film Registry, which are films that have been deemed culturally and historically significant by the Library of Congress. And this was actually created by an act of Congress to sort of create a treasure trove of our country's culture over time. So every year they add about 25 films to this list, and Leonard Maltin will be presenting a restored print, restored by the Library of Congress, of his favorite film, The Maltese Falcon, starring Humphrey Bogart, and then an interesting film called The Employee's Entrance that I had never heard of, and I'm sure you hadn't. It's a pre-code film. Hollywood had code during a special code during the late 20s and 30s, in which all hints of sort of sex, impropriety, or whatever was completely banned in the film. You couldn't passionately kiss. A man and woman could not be seen in bed together, never mind a couple that was not attached. So this is a pre-code film that is particularly interesting nonetheless. So he'll be presenting that. Maltin will be presenting that film as well. So there's the Maltese Falcon and Employee's Entrance, the film I was just talking about, as part of our Library of Congress. We screen so many incredible films that you're unlikely to have heard of. Many of them are international films that might have done well on the international circuit in Cannes or in Deauville or in Venice. Films like Victoria, which was done all in one shot about a Spanish woman who's out partying in Germany one night and gets pulled into a bank heist and serves as the getaway driver. It's a really fascinating film that's done extraordinarily well on the festival circuit. The Forbidden Room, which is just a real sort of tone piece and really interesting, or Entertainment. And we have the director Rick Alverson, who's very hot in the independent film circuit right now, coming in. Saturday, we're screening Born on the 4th of July, and we're having the legendary director Oliver Stone. He's won so many Academy Awards for writing, directing, and producing. You probably know his work from JFK, Natural Born Killers. Oh my God, the list is so long. Platoon, Wall Street, just incredible director, a very controversial director, someone who is known at looking at sort of the seamier side of American politics and American history, and is very controversial in how he's presented this over the years. So he's a very fascinating guest. We brought him in a couple years ago, and Larry Sabato with the Center for Politics moderated a discussion with him. This time we have the Vietnam expert Bob Toplin, who's a professor emeritus at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and a UVA adjunct, actually moderating the conversation with Stone, and they've collaborated before, so that should be really fascinating. That's Saturday afternoon at the Paramount Theater. Our centerpiece film stars Maggie Smith, and it's called The Lady in the Van, about a woman who's living out of her van, one day shows up on the driveway of a screenwriter in London, parks her van there, asks for permission to spend the night in the van, and they become friends to the dismay of his neighbors over time. And it's a big, big studio release that's coming out, and there's been a lot of attention on this film as well. We have a party, the Late Night Rap Party, which is on Saturday evening on the downtown mall and the ice rink. And these are some of the other top new releases that are coming out. Carol, which is about a relationship between two women in the 1950s, starring Cate Blanchett and Rooney Mara. Doe, which is about an Israeli baker whose apprentice accidentally slips in some marijuana into the dough, and suddenly sales go off the charts. Mully, which is a really moving documentary. Scott Hayes returns to the festival for the third time in a directorial debut about a Nigerian man who was a homeless boy and became a huge entrepreneur in Kenya, and has started an organization that takes young children off the streets. Which is a wonderful thing. And Last Days in the Desert, starring Ewan McGregor, who plays both Christ and the devil, having a conversation over 40 days in the desert. It's a really fascinating tour de force for him as an actor. Screening Monroe Hill, which I'm sure you've heard talk about, which takes a look at the origins of Brown College and on Monroe Hill. Southern Gothic, Some Beasts, Coming Through the Rye, which was shot here on location in Virginia and is about a young boy in boarding school during the 50s who decides that he must dramatize The Catcher in the Rye and heads off in search of J.D. Salinger to ask his permission. It's a really, really fun look at that. And Polyfaces, if you're into locally sourced food, we have one of the premier individuals in the country that has his own farm, the Polyface Farm, not far from here. And he and his entire family will be on hand to talk about their farming experience as it's chronicled in this new documentary. We have a whole sidebar on civil rights. One film that's not up here that we're screening is the 100th anniversary of Birth of a Nation, arguably one of the most racist films and horrifically racist films ever done. We're screening this for a reason. It was screened, and the first film actually ever screened in the White House in 1915. And now 100 years later, we have our first African-American president in the White House. So we want to put this carefully in context and examine this film, the excesses that it had many years ago as it reflected that historical period. We have the Pulitzer Prize-winning author Doug Blackman, who wrote Slavery by Another Name, who will moderate a conversation. We have the president of the Black Student Union on hand. It's supported by the Carter Woodson Institute for African and African American Studies. And we're interested in having a dialogue because racial inequality and civil rights is an issue that still has not been settled yet today. And as a result, we're also doing a strong sidebar on civil rights. How many of you know who Larry Kramer is? Okay. For those of you who don't, during the 1980s, at the very height of the AIDS crisis, when really our country was ignoring it, and the world was, there were fears and phobias and concerns, and Larry Kramer was that angry AIDS activist who was an author. He wrote The Normal Heart, which was the first play really presented on Broadway of note that treated the AIDS crisis. And he literally reached out and shook America, grabbed America by the throat and said, you must pay attention to this tragedy before it spirals so out of control, which of course it was doing at that time. He had a huge, huge impact. He's nearly 80 years old now. He doesn't travel much, and we're fortunate to bring him in. There's a new documentary, Larry Kramer in Love and Anger. He'll be doing a Q&A after that documentary, and then he will be presenting a speech on his life and career as an author, an artist, and an AIDS activist, and the impact that he's had. And I highly recommend, one of the things the festival's able to do is to bring people in that have actually made history or contributed to history, or are social change agents that have made a difference in our world. And he's one of them. And it's a real great opportunity to listen to him. So again, it's free. It's in Cabell Hall, 6 o'clock on Sunday evening, November 8th, and I encourage you to attend if you can. Our closing night film, Son of Saul, is at the Paramount Theater. Is at the Culver Theater. It is a powerful, very dark, very disturbing drama about a Hungarian Jew living in a concentration camp who's a Sonderkommando, is forced by the Nazis to burn the dead. And he comes across the body of his own son. They had been separated, and he wants to give him a proper burial, and he has to do this quietly and off to the side. And it's a very, very difficult but powerful film, and a very important film. And interestingly enough, this gentleman, Geza Rohrig, who plays the lead in the film, is not an actor, or at least was not before this film. He actually teaches in a synagogue in Brooklyn. He's from Hungary, and he has a rock band. And I'm almost 100% certain that he will be nominated for Best Actor this year. So it's a really interesting look at a very important subject as well. So in a nutshell, that's the Virginia Film Festival this year. And what I didn't talk about is the other probably 90 or so titles that are on our website, which is a great website. We're really proud of it. It's great, it's interactive, it's easy to figure out, and it has all the synopses and the stories of what we're doing. So I encourage you, virginiafilmfestival.org, to check it out. Very quickly, I know that you wanted me to give an overview of the arts. I serve as the Vice Provost for the Arts at the University of Virginia, which means that I represent all of the arts. We talked about the President Speaker Series. We've talked about Arts Dollars. There's so many incredible things that are going on in the arts, whether it's in studio art or you're over at Art History, you're in Cabell for all the incredible musical presentations that are happening. Whether it's what drama is doing, you name it, we've got it. So I encourage you, while you're here, try and take advantage of that. It's really exceptional. And there's also, I might add, really great student-run organizations that are not involved formally with the departments and the programs at the university, but they're incredible. First-year players, the a cappella groups. There's a group on grounds that stages an opera every year. The improv groups, they're amazing, they're great. They allow students that maybe don't want to focus in the arts, but have an artistic interest to participate, and they're really phenomenal. So I encourage you to take a look at all those, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have to have questions for him. He also has to tell you a little bit about his background, because you notice how good he is with names, how good he is in a stand-up situation like this, because of your theater background, right?
Well, that is
You want to tell them about your
that's-
theater background, or should I not reveal that, or are you trying to keep that?
Oh, no. So, all right, so I majored in history at Rollins College, and while I was doing that, I started doing one play a year and decided I enjoyed that, and so then I went back to school almost immediately, and I got a BFA in theater, followed by an MFA in acting at the FSU Oslo Conservatory for Actors Training, which meant that year two, I was part of a professional acting company, and I got my Actors Equity card, and then I moved out to Los Angeles, and I was in a soap, and I waited a lot of tables, and finally got the idea that I would open my own live professional theater, which I did, and I opened it under the Hollywood sign. It revitalized a part of old Hollywood, and a lot of interesting people came through the door that as a creative I got to work with. So for instance, Ben Stiller, when nobody knew who Ben Stiller was, came and directed Colin Quinn from Saturday Night Live at my theater in a one-man show. Jane Lynch, when nobody knew who Jane Lynch was, regularly did comic shows at my theater in Los Angeles. People like Warren Beatty and Annette Bening Benning attended my theater, and Kevin Costner, and it was just kind of a cool, hip area in Hollywood where the Red Hot Chili Peppers hung out. Billy Cusack, John Cusack's brother, did a play at my theater, and so every night John and his brother Billy and Jeremy Piven and Billy Zane and Steve Pink used to hang out. So it was a really vibrant, dynamic period of my life. The theater today is actually operated, and it's a small, tiny theater, not much bigger than this room, and it sat 92 people, is operated by the Upright Citizens Brigade. It's a comedy troupe that was founded by Amy Poehler. And it still operates. It's under the Hollywood sign. I'm very proud of that, but it was a very creative, dynamic period of my life where I gave up acting and became a producer. Years later, I moved back to Florida, and I was hired to found from scratch, after being a producing artistic director at a theater, the Sarasota Film Festival, and in time built it to one of the largest in the southeast of the country. Brought in a lot of acts as part of that, like Aerosmith and the B-52s, and very big stars, and ran a lot of special events with that, and then was hired by UVA to run the film festival, and then 3 years ago appointed vice provost for the arts as well. So I have a great job because I have fun representing the incredible work that's being done here at UVA by students and by faculty that includes research, teaching, and creative work. And occasionally I get to produce really big events like the film festival, or to bring in Kevin Spacey or Tina Fey. So it's fun pretty much all the time for me. So there you go.
Questions, yes, and you should ask him, how could you get involved with the film festival? You heard him start talking about an intern. Maybe somebody would like to do some work with them. So maybe that's a question that I'll ask. How could they be involved?
Well, sure. I mean, there's a couple ways to be involved in the Virginia Film Festival. One is every year we accept 12 interns. We have a lot of people that apply. We interview the interns. We ask for writing samples. We actually interview you twice, so there's a lot of competition. It's a 3-credit hour course. You work very, very hard. We have yet to hear anybody have a bad experience, and for most it's a transcendent experience as an internship. People do it who want to learn how to produce, that want to get into entertainment or film or theater. We've had a lot of arts administration students go through, but we've had people from all areas of the college or the university go through as interns. I think it's a great experience, and the ratings from students are through the roof. We work you hard, but we also give you ownership over what you do. So we're looking for people that are smart, creative, dynamic, that work hard and can be self-activated. So as a result of that, it's not just licking envelopes, although there's some grunt work in it, but in reality, it's creating and owning your own projects. We couldn't do it without the student help that we do. I'll put it in a nutshell. At one point when we announced the film program, we sit down for several hours with all the students and the entire staff, and we go over every single one of those 117 features that are in the festival. And we say, okay, who see this film? What's this film about? Who knows a student group or a department or a program or a professor or somebody who's passionate about this subject matter? Get it out to the listservs. Let's go promote this film. What are the similar groups out in the community that we can reach out to? And the students are actively involved in that. We have marketing, publicity, production, development. There's so many facets that you can learn, and it's really great. So that's one way. The other is just volunteering. You can go online right now and volunteer to work during the Virginia Film Festival, which is also a great way to be involved. And some of our interns have done that first, gotten their feet wet, and gone on. Or you can just go see a film, and it's free. Yes?
Do you have any advice, I guess, for making connections in the art world?
Wow, that's probably more than 5 minutes. But you know what? I think people that make connections in the art world are people that show up and are genuinely interested and involved and engaged in the art world. You're going to impress whoever's already there by your interest and by showing up sometimes. So I also think that artists and artists who make it eventually, not who fall by the wayside and don't create art, but people that are creating art or having their art produced are doers. They're people that have such a passion that they have to get that out there, and they have to have it seen and share it with other people. So, you know, people that have that kind of passion, they're out there, they're doing it, they're working it, they're meeting people, they're getting involved, they're taking advantage of opportunities like the film festival or going to a concert or whatever, and they're the ones that are staying afterwards to engage with the artist and say, hey, tell me a little bit about your life. How could I follow up with you, whatever the case may be. So it's actually much more involved than that, but that's one way, particularly now at this juncture that you could start to move that forward. Yes?
Is there one like underdog film that you think is kind of being underestimated right now, or that you're like really excited for?
Ooh, that's interesting. That would have been more obvious to me in the program last year, I think, than this year, simply because the way things have laid out. Film is an interesting thing. There were a lot of high-profile films that we screened during the Virginia Film Festival that were so obvious for the Academy Awards and the Golden Globes. Foxcatcher, Theory of Everything, Wild, Mr. Turner, The Imitation Game. We screened every one of those films. There you go, there's a fan. Every one of those films last year was in our program, and we knew that they were going to be nominated for an Academy Award on some level, whether it was Best Actor, Cinematography, Best Film, whatever the case may be. Those are a little less obvious this year. I think Son of Saul is the one that's most likely right now in terms of, and Carol are the ones that are probably the most likely of the lineup that we have to be considered for that. And some of the others are less obvious. They're still sort of shaping the award season right now. We have a lot that are about to come out. Steve Jobs is coming out. Truth is coming out. Our Brand is Crisis is coming out. And then there's several big films, including Revenant and Oliver Stone's big blockbuster, Snowden, about Edward Snowden, that will come out in December, which is why it's so amazing that we have Oliver Stone, because although he can't share Snowden with us, it's not complete. He's still doing the final touches on the editing. We have him here before he's going to be hugely relevant on the scene, because that film, really controversial, coming out in December. So again, take advantage of Oliver Stone being here. But I know that sort of went around your question a little bit, but that's kind of the way I feel. Yes?
This is a terrible question, but if there's one film at the festival you'd say, do not miss this film, you have to see it now, you're going to get a chance again, what would?
Wow. I'll give you two films. I think that right now, if you can see Son of Saul or Carol, those are two films. They'll be out. They will be out. So if you don't catch them at the film festival, you can catch them out, So then I would say that the counter to that is, part of the great thing about the festival is discovery. If you have time one time to really sort through the film program, which takes time, because as I mentioned, there's 117 or so features to read through, look for something that really fits your interest, because it's amazing how it's that independent film that you go and, sometimes it's a filmmaker not much older than yourself that's put their credit card down or somehow managed to shake mom and dad down for a little extra money and go out and make an independent film because they had a very strong vision. And I think that's what's fascinating, is that people that have that kind of passion to do something and are willing to put everything on the line to see it through because they have a particular interest in a subject or a topic or something like that. And there's a lot of circumstances or instances of that in this year's Virginia Film Festival. So I would look for that. Yes?
How do you think Netflix and all those sort of streaming online services affects like attendance at film festivals? Because people can just easily access all these like small indie films. Like you want to talk about like weird Norwegian films because we have the wave.
Sure, but do you have the director in your living room while you're doing that? Maybe you do. I don't know, probably not. And so as a result of that, what the film festival does that's entirely different from you watching it on your laptop or on your television at home is it builds a sense of community. You're in a room with a group of people, some like-minded, some not. And then that director or somebody associated with the film or an expert we have in the room that's going to take you through a discussion. And the difference from going to a lecture and seeing the film is really accessible. You're in with an audience, you're breathing in and out, you're experiencing it, you're laughing, you're crying, all at the same time. And it's a shared experience, almost like a communal experience. And that goes all the way back to sitting around the fires many, many years ago when they told stories. It's the modern day version of storytelling, and it's a shared experience. So that's where it's different. And interestingly enough, Netflix, all of the streaming, everything, have been supposedly the death knell of the movie industry for more than 10 years now. And film attendance keeps rising because people want that shared experience. So that's the difference more than anything.
All right, we have time for one more question. Yes, the animal in the back.
What has been your worst movie theater experience?
Okay. I was in a film many, many years ago as an actor with Linda Blair. You hear the Exorcist, the young girl in this frightfully horrible movie many, many years ago that sort of launched the really scary movies in the early 70s, except this was almost like an art film. It was by William Friedkin. Her head spun around in the movie. And anyway, years later, I played her boyfriend in a film, and it was a really bad film. And it premiered in Miami, and I happened to be visiting my family in Fort Lauderdale, and we drove down to see it. And it was me and my brother and my sister, and we were the only 3 people in the movie theater on the opening night. So that would be my worst film experience. Okay, thank you all very much.
Absolutely outstanding, without a doubt. And we're going to have a really positive film experience. Actually, Jody's going to come up to the Hill because there are things that he does want to see, because you are doing art on the Hill, are you not? We are doing art on the Hill.